See, I was trying to go over. I need to go under.
Little left.
Okay. Well, that was just my practice clap. That wasn't a real clap.
Fair
okay?
enough. They're both staying in, so it doesn't matter.
Ready?
Go. Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to Editing the Academy. I'm co-host Darryl.
And I'm Laura.
And we are here to talk about what year and what films.
We are here to talk about the films of 1972, those that were released from January 1st to December 31st in 1972, and that they were presented in the spring of 1973.
All right, and what are the films we're going to talk about today? What were the nominees?
The nominees were Cabaret, Deliverance, The Emigrants, Sounder, and the winner, The Godfather.
All right, rather interesting, big diversity in this one, I thought.
Big diversity, and I'm going to say this is the first one where there was not a clunker in the crowd. I thought it was a very good group of movies. That said, and I would like to confess for our audience, because I've already confessed to you, I did not watch The Emigrants. I could not find a way to watch it. It wasn't on streaming. I couldn't rent or buy it from Amazon, and I just was not ready to invest in a $40 DVD.
Yeah, the same. I wasn't able to watch it either. I tried through my pirating system. I couldn't even get it there. All the links were bad. And I was not going to spend $40 to watch this movie as well.
Okay.
So, we'll still give the information for that one,
Absolutely.
but we don't really have point of reference, so this one's always going to have a little bit of an asterisk, because who knows, it could be the best movie that's ever been done, ever.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's hope that it was.
What do you want to start with, my dear?
Let's start with Deliverance, because it's the first one on my list.
Fair enough. Okay. Deliverance, 1972 thriller, produced and directed by John Borman, starring Jon Voight, Burt Reynolds, Ned Beatty, and Ronnie Cox. The latter were making their feature film debuts. Screenplay was adapted by James Dickey from his 1970 novel of the same name, and it was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Film Editing. Didn't win a thing. And now, because I remember, what are we going to do?
We're going to talk fun facts from this movie. And I have to say, this was the funnest fact of the ones that I've collected, which is Ronnie Cox is double jointed. And therefore, the picture of him, or the scene of him in the river after he's dead, is him and his arm. That was not prosthetics or any kind of costume. So I appreciated that. The other secondary fun fact is that Jon Voight's wife was played by Ned Beatty's real-life wife.
Oh.
And Jon Voight's son was played by the director's son. So a little family affair.
All right. Fair enough. Little nepotism going on.
Absolutely. Nepo baby before we knew the title.
Have you seen this one before? Or was this first time?
First time.
But you, of course, have heard of it and all the different things.
I thought I knew everything about it. So I was very aware of it and had purposely avoided it my entire life.
This was my second time, possibly third, seeing it. It was vastly different than what I remembered.
Oh, interesting.
I thought the movie was more focused on just the one aspect, where it's not. This is kind of a bunch of films put together, but it's like they're like short stories almost.
Yep.
But they all make complete sense, unlike some of the ones we've done before, where
Fair.
there were different stories. All right, so your overall. You knew what was going to happen, so when it did happen, was it surprising in any way, shape, or form?
What was surprising to me was, so let's just say the whole squeal like a pig scene.
Yeah.
That is what I thought the movie was entirely about, was the violation of Ned Beatty, and I was very pleasantly surprised to find out that that wasn't what the movie was about. That was a small piece scene, very necessary and very as well done as I thought it could be done.
Yep.
But the rest of the movie, how it was done, the moral questions they were grappling with, the performances, the stunts, which I thought were really well shot and delivered, I was very pleasantly surprised by this movie.
Okay.
How about you?
I enjoyed it. I would recommend somebody who's never seen it watch it so that you can have the context for conversation, for sure. I was less enthralled by it this time than I remembered being the last time, and it wasn't necessarily anything to do with performance, the directing. I thought some of the best aspects of this film, outside of the moral questioning and so on, was the being able to film it on the river with your actors actually going through the rapids. And I mean, ultimately the rapids aren't really that bad. I've been canoeing, I've been over rapids like that. but the way they shot them made them seem so much more than what they actually were.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
It's really well shot.
And I really like the fact that they were putting the actors in those scenarios to be able to get those shots. They weren't cutaways where you, except for like once or twice when someone fell out, you could see someone going down that was obviously a stunt person. But every other time they were on the water in those boats, it was them on the water in those boats doing those things. I thought that was great.
Yep, totally agree. I thought the action was well done, well shot, and well performed by the actors.
One of the things that I had remembered but was still a little disjarring to me is the portrayal of Deep Woods Southern people is...
It was less than flattering.
Yeah, yes. The banjo scene where they played dueling banjos, I thought that was great. The child obviously had something going on there, but that was kind of fun. That drew out to show that, you know, they're regular people, hopefully on the surface. Then everything after that, I thought, became very stereotypical, and the things that people make fun of for the South are the portrayals of the people in the South in this movie. I had a little bit of a problem with that, not a major one, but just a little bit of a problem with that.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that, so that perhaps means you are a better person than I am, which is entirely possible. But the thing I loved about the banjo too is that, again, in my mind, that banjo music was supposed to be just bringing dread to mind, and it was not. It was actually a lovely moment between Ronnie Cox and the boy, and it was a positive aspect, and I did not know that going in, and I thought that they really did that very well.
So, my problem, I guess, with this movie is because it is a bunch of different movies. One, after the rape happens, they don't ever talk about it amongst themselves, and I don't know if that was just like a 1970s machismo guy kind of choice, or if it's because it was neglected in the script and it wasn't something necessary. They don't talk about it. They just go on essentially a revenge tactic.
Ned Beatty basically adjusted as well from a sexual assault as anybody I've ever seen in a movie, and I don't think that that was appropriate or accurate. I agree with you there, but I do think a piece of it was machismo, that they probably wouldn't have actually shown that before even this time in our movie history. So that was probably as much as they felt comfortable doing,
and then
not showing the aftermath.
My second problem is when the movie, after this happens and after they kill one of the people that did this to them, the movie takes a very dramatic shift to, and I was slightly confused, and I even kind of went back and watched like that 5 or 10 minutes again, and I was still confused why suddenly they were the ones that were being hunted and questioned, because they're never accused of anything. I don't remember.
Do you mean by the second man with the gun, or do you mean by the police at the end?
By the police.
Oh, okay, yes.
Like, that just seemed to come out of nowhere, where suddenly they're on the defensive, and yes, they're on the defensive, rightly so.
Sure.
But nobody knows that, and so why are they being questioned, and why are they acting so guilty in the eyes of all of these people? Like, why are they focused in on them? That was not clear to me, and that kind of brought me out of when they're all trying to keep their secret, because I didn't see any justification for that switch.
The only thing I can think of is that they were clearly outsiders, and the story they were telling clearly did not happen because of where the canoe was found.
Right.
So I think it was the police just saying, this is not coming together, and we have somebody who's missing. So I think it was more of, we don't trust these outsiders. And
okay, that makes sense.
There is a question too of, okay, so then what Burt Reynolds was saying about, hey, I don't want to be tried down here in these courts by people who are all related and know each other, was it giving a little bit of validity to his position? That's a
good point. And I didn't really think about his constantly saying that he didn't want to be tried down there, and that makes perfect sense. If you're going to be tried by a jury of your peers, those are probably not the peers you would choose.
If those are your peers, then there's a larger concern that we need to address. Exactly.
My only other small little thing is when John Voight was on the mountain and he's pursuing the guy trying to get him, and then they did it twice where they cut away to where he's like kind of hanging, and it was special effects. Whereas every other thing in the movie was practical effects, so I don't understand why they didn't do that, because it's very obvious there's special effects, which kind of took me out for the moment that those were happening. Like, you went to all these great lengths to do all of these great practical effects. Why two quick scenes of him hanging off a cliff? I didn't. Overall, I enjoyed it. I thought the performances were great. You can see Burt Reynolds starting to kind of flex his acting muscles a little bit. He did, I thought, a great job. I don't think he did an Oscar-worthy performance kind of job, but he was who his character was, and that's kind of him from what we understand of him at that time anyway.
And all times, yes.
So I didn't have a problem with any of those. I thought the performances were great. I thought the choices that the director made were great. The script is an odd one to even try to get made into a movie. So I was proud. Again, we might be starting to see some of the reflection from Midnight Cowboy, starting to see odder pictures get greenlit. That might be
a little darker too.
Yep. But overall, I enjoyed it. I really did.
I enjoyed it much more than I thought I would. It was more of a movie than I thought it would be, which I really enjoyed. I am going to tell you the one nitpick that I have that bugged me a little bit was everything in the movie could have been avoided if they'd driven one car downtown, because same thing. I've been on the river, we've canoed, and we drive one car downtown, and then someone gets in it, goes back, and drives back for the other cars. So just throwing out there, that bugged me through the whole movie, is that this would not have been such a big deal, and they wouldn't have met a lot of these people, but they might have still been attacked in the woods as being outsiders.
Sure, but I didn't mind that, because this is a lot of things in life. You make a choice and you live with the decision that you made. This was a decision they made, seemed to be kind of on a whim mostly, and then the consequences of that choice were what followed.
And many other decisions they made, they're going to have to live with forever as well.
All right, I would like to move on, if you don't mind, to Sounder.
All right, by all means.
So, Sounder is a 1972 American film directed by Martin Ritt, adapted by Leon Elder III from the 1969 novel of the same name, by William H. Armstrong. It stars Cicely Tyson, Paul Winfield, who's had a long career. Most people will probably recognize him from The Wrath of Khan, and Kevin Hooks. Taj Mahal composed the film's blues-inspired soundtrack and also appears in the supporting role. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Screenplay. Did not win any of them. There you go. Fun facts, please.
Okay, fun facts are that the book that this was based on, the only character that had a name was the dog Sounder. The mother, father, and child, and none of the children had names in the book.
Oh, okay.
So they were mother, father. So, and also it was later remade for A Wonderful World of Disney TV movie in 2003. The director was the boy who played David Lee.
Oh, really?
And Paul Winfield was recast as the teacher in the end.
Okay.
So I thought it was a lovely, I actually really want to go see this now.
All right, so I had some problems with this movie. Not the desire, obviously, to focus on a black sharecropping family in the South. That was not the issue. The issue I had is I was just kind of I had two major issues. One, the movie's called Sounder. It's not really about the dog.
Absolutely not. Yep.
So that one was like, okay, why? But that one I brushed off. The second was, it's just a series of, to me, it just seemed like a series of events, none of which were of huge import, and things just seem to kind of happen to them, and they adapt and move on. I didn't connect with what was happening, and that just could be, me being a 50s white dude, I don't know, but I did not connect with this at all.
So 50s white lady speaking, but I connected with it a little bit more in that, first of all, I agree with you that not much happened, but what happened for me in the end was, I think it was presented as a positive that David gets out and breaks the cycle of the family.
I agree with that, yeah.
So it starts with everybody's all in it at once, and then there is that bittersweet of, first of all, what is David's life going to be like? Even if it gets better than being a sharecropper, how good will it get? We don't know. We don't know just by getting an education. how high he will be able to raise himself in society, but also he is leaving behind his parents and his younger siblings to the life that he's leaving. So I didn't see it as a positive as much as I think the show wanted us to all feel good that David got out of this abject poverty.
And I got that, and I was glad that that's the way it ended. It showed, you know, progress, I guess. So I was happy with the way that it ended. I just wondered about the journey to get there. Like, I understand that a lot of those scenes were necessary to be able to ground us in the world that David was in for him to leave. I don't know. I think it just could have been done better to have it be more engaging. But again, this is 1972. We're used to films that have a lot more depth and character at this point, so I don't know.
That's where I was going to go. This is 5 years before Roots, and so I think that Roots, you know, that was 77. If I have this right, and I think that that's a big piece of it is that most white audiences have never seen anything about this world, and so they needed to be into the context of what is it like to not be able to put food on your child's table. You know, what are these folks going through, and how bleak is it really? So I think it was necessary at that time.
Okay, and I will agree with that, and that's why I put right up front that I think that's just my, you know, 50 years of watching movies.
Yes.
Expecting something with a little bit more depth and thought, I guess. I don't know. I was expecting going in that this was going to be like an overtly racist movie, and I was surprised. I mean, there are definitely moments, but I was surprised that it was not. In fact, most of the interactions are pretty civil. Like, people are genuinely nice to each other. I mean, I can understand how black folk in the 1970s, I think it was supposed to be in the 70s, right? No, was it early? No.
No, I took it as more in the 30s, 40s.
Okay, yeah, so. You're absolutely right. And I can understand the deferential treatment that black folk would have to white folk at that time, but I was surprised that there was not a lot of racially charged conversations with the white. They seemed genuinely civil. They acknowledged a difference, but they seemed genuinely civil, and I was just surprised by that, I guess, because my expectation was it would be a little bit more cutting. I think if they were to remake that now, it would probably have more racial overtones.
Uglier than it was then.
I was just surprised by that as well.
No, and I pegged the same thing. I was surprised as well. I thought Cecily Tyson's also, her interactions were very interesting because yes, she was somewhat deferential, but not truly. I mean, she told the sheriff what for. You have a terrible job. And when the like nice white lady came up, she basically said, you're crazy for helping us in the way that you're going to put yourself at risk. And so, yet when the sheriff took away her husband, she held back the kids. She knew when to be scared, and she knew when not to make a scene, and she knew when she could speak up a little bit. And again, that's all the time that she was living in, but I loved that she wasn't fully deferential.
Yeah, you're right.
And that she had the space to do that is, I think, the point that you're also trying to make, is that it wasn't ugly relationships. It was not as ugly as you expect it to be, anyway. And Cecily Tyson can just says so much without saying a word. I love her.
Yeah, so overall I enjoyed it. I thought the choices, the way that they framed a lot of the scenes themselves, the way the director kind of set the scenes up, I thought was very well done, because you did really get a picture for the area, and you did get a sense of the time. So I thought the choices they made doing all of that were phenomenal. I can see why it was nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah.
I think, so I can say. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was an appropriate nominee. I think it was bleak and sad, and I saw it as sadder yet, just because, again, we don't know how fully David is going to be able to pull himself up. And in buying him new clothes and in getting him ready to go to this teacher, they're putting themselves more under I don't even know what the guy is called, but the guy who owns the land. They're putting themselves in debt more to him as they go along. So their world is getting even worse by putting their son ahead of themselves.
And I actually did learn something, just to end on. I honestly did not know what the true definition of a sharecropper was. And then watching it, I had a full understanding of like, oh, you're just working the land. You don't own this. You are not. You're not getting paid for this.
Nope.
You are. that's what it means. And I was like, okay, that makes so much sense to me.
And you owe, it's the company store, you
Yep.
owe everything from the tools you're buying, to the food you're buying, to everything.
Yep. Okay.
So, okay.
Moving on to Cabaret.
All right.
All right.
Go ahead.
This one's gonna be fun. Cabaret, 1972 musical. It's a period piece directed by Bob Fosse, super famous in the musical world. It was done by a screenplay by Jay Allen, based on a stage musical of the same name. The musical was in turn based on a 1951 play called I Am a Camera by John Van Druten, and which was based on the 1939 novel Goodbye to Berlin. So a lot of adaptations
Yes.
to get us to this particular presentation. It stars Liza Minnelli, Michael York, Helmut Grimm, Marissa Berenson, and Joel Grey. It was nominated for a ton of stuff. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Screenplay, Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing, Best Scoring, Adaptation, and Original Song, and Best Sound. It won a ton as well. Best Director, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, Best Art Direction, Cinematography, Film Editing, Adaptation and Original Song, and Best Sound. The only two it didn't win were Best Picture and Best Screenplay. So I think this was a very big film for that time period.
My understanding is that this is a fun fact that I did not look up, so
Okay.
I believe it's a fun fact, is that this is the movie that has won the most Oscars without winning Best Picture.
Oh, okay.
Which would make sense,
Yeah,
given
yeah.
that line, and also that the distinctive look of Liza Minnelli, she created with the help of Vincent Minnelli, her father, who told her that she should base her look on Louise Brooks, who is a femme fatale of the 30s.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, because it is a very distinct look.
It is, and it's not the look that they had in the original play. She created it for the movie, and then this is now the quintessential Sally Bowles look.
So, it is quite common for Hollywood to take a big Broadway musical hit and adapt it into a film. Many times it does not work at all. There's something that gets lost in the translation for that. Other times it works brilliantly, and sometimes in musicals it is just like, we're going to film the musical and that's going to be the visual. Hamilton is a great example of that. Other times they try to do an interpretation of that. This, I think, falls in the latter category.
I agree.
It's definitely an interpretation. I've never seen the musical on Broadway.
Neither have I.
I can imagine that it is a fantastic musical. I do not think it translated well into a film. I think part of the problem is it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. Was it a musical that was set during this time period with all of this stuff that's just supposed to be in the background? Is it supposed to be more in the foreground? The whole interactions being in Germany and the Nazis rising to power, because they're climbing to power at this moment, I think was ambiguous, and that was problematic for me. I needed it to make a choice. Is it just going to be in the background? That's fine. Is it going to be more in the foreground? That's fine. But make a choice. I don't think they did. Go.
Okay. So I thought it was much more successful than you did, and I'll tell you the reasons why. But my biggest criticism is what your concern is, which is it didn't know what it was. Was it a musical? Was it a commentary on the 30s? Was it an adult drama about homosexuality and abortion and all of these things that you want to bring in at that time? It didn't know what it was. It was very muddled, and that was my biggest concern with it. That said, I thought it was a successful adaptation because it's the first time that we've seen a musical, and we've seen many Best Picture nominee musicals, that the music made sense in the movie to me.
Yes,
So
I agree.
it was, except for the one Nazi song that they sang, everything was in the Kit Kat Club. All of the musical numbers came through the Kit Kat Club, which meant that they had to actually cut several of the numbers from the Cabaret musical because they didn't just have people bursting into song. I think the thing I liked the most about it was Liza Minnelli's performance. I thought she was sexy and vulnerable and not very nice. And she was a very gray character that she wasn't a great person, but she was an interesting person, which I think is even better.
Yes, I agree with all of that. She also seems naive is the wrong word, just lack of concern for anything going on around her that she's not directly involved in or wants. Case in point, where I can't remember the character's name, but the lady comes and basically says, I need your advice. There was this guy who essentially rapes her.
At your, with your advice, yes.
And Liza doesn't give any sort of good advice, or really any advice. Like,
No.
does not acknowledge what happened, tries to move on to something different. She can't get out of that conversation quick enough. Like, that's just an example to me of like, that I understand it. It fit with her character 100%. I just didn't like it. Like, here's a moment. Take a moment and try to empathize or bond with another fellow human being. Not gonna happen.
She could not do that.
Yeah.
She just didn't have it emotionally in her to do that. And I think too, like what road do they go down? She to me did embody a lot of probably the Germans during that time frame. Is yes, that's happening over there. That political, party is coming to power, but that doesn't impact me. I don't have to worry about that. And the same thing, an actual conversation happened with, okay, we're gonna let the Nazis take care of the communists and then we'll take care of the Nazis.
Yeah.
Like, I think there was just a lot of, I'm not looking over there because that doesn't bother me or impact me right now. So I kind of liked that piece. The definite con was that situation about that woman who is Jewish and falls in love with a poor friend. The poor friend falls in love with her, basically rapes her, but it's okay because she gets into it afterwards, which is problematic on multiple levels.
Can I take a quick time out though?
Absolutely.
The fact that she's Jewish is brought up with like 40 minutes left in the movie. Like, it's not mentioned at all, and that's, I guess, one of the examples of what I'm saying where it doesn't decide what it wants to do. That's a great opportunity to just throw a little bit in to heighten everything. And it's just not. Like, you don't find out she's Jewish until there's like 40 minutes left in the movie.
Well, no, I think they mentioned at the very, very beginning before we meet her that she's Jewish, but it's a non-issue. Like, it's so non that you could have missed it. Yeah, it is such a non-issue that it's easy to miss. But then the fact that she's become Jewish then becomes problematic. And yet the guy who is in love with her is Jewish and just has to, say that he is, and then they get married and presumably go live their lives, which probably does not work out well for them in the long run. But the one piece I would love to get your thoughts on is Joel Grey. Where were you on the Joel Grey of it? Because he did win Best Supporting Actor. This is probably his most known and loved role, and I didn't love it.
You did? Or
I did not.
He took me out of it a lot. I have actually a note on my lovely sheet that there are scenes where his mustache just gets in the way.
Yes. Okay, there you go. His mustache had its own role.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
And like sometimes you could obviously tell that they didn't grow it, they glued it on, because there are moments where it catches in the sunlight and it's just all you can see.
You're right.
So it was hard for me to focus on his performance and what his character was doing. That was a little ambiguous to me. Sorry, I mispronounced that word. Because of the mustache. I couldn't get beyond it.
I just didn't see him as a character. I don't know who he is, what he is, why he's doing what he's doing. I guess he was supposed to represent kind of the I don't know. I don't know what he was trying to represent. It didn't work for me.
He was some sort of rich nobility who was apparently bisexual, but that didn't really matter all that much either. Like, a lot of things that were thrown at you in this movie, they don't do anything with.
Yes.
And that's that's the big problem I had with this, is like it's just, here's a fact, here's a fact, here's a fact. Nothing is developed. And that bothered me.
Yeah, I think that they tried a lot of things. It was like there was the big checklist of here are some dark themes that we would like to throw in there as far as, an abortion and anti-Semitic and what's going on in Nazi Germany. But again, kind of to me, I go by the characters for the most part, and I just thought Sally Bowles was such an interesting character. I thought Brian was an interesting character. He says that he's gay, but then he sleeps with her, but then he's clearly bisexual, which is, not that there's anything wrong with that. That's totally fine, but I don't understand what motivated him. Why did he come to Germany? Why did he leave Germany?
Right, and why do we need to know that he's bisexual? That means it didn't have any sort of relevance necessarily to the film. It was just another fact.
I think it was just showing how selfish he and Sally both were, because they were sort of in a relationship and then they weren't, because they were both sleeping with the same man. I mean, that's what I took away from that.
Okay.
But I thought that the direction was very good. I thought that the music musical numbers were done and were done in a very contained way. I thought it was interesting, and I wish they had done a lot more with it. But I thought it was a solid, good movie.
All of the scenes that are done in the Kit Kat Club, you could tell that this was Fosse's forte.
Absolutely.
And he basically he took some liberties because it's a smaller area. He was bringing the audience in so you could see that it was on stage rather than just a presentation. And I thought those were excellent and beautifully done. Whether I liked the number or not did not matter.
It was beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
It's everything outside of the club that just didn't work for me.
Yeah. What message were they sending?
Right.
But yes, and for me, I don't disagree, but I enjoyed it enough that it didn't matter. It didn't matter. I had a good old time.
I think we should probably acknowledge that you have a slight weak spot for musicals, and you're going to give them more of a pass than maybe they should.
I gave a very good mark to the canoe going, southern background, but yes, I do love my musicals, and they can pretty much do no wrong. Yes.
Okay, shall we move on to the one we did not watch?
What? Oh, yes, I have nothing on that. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I have no notes.
I'm just going to give the information. The Immigrants, it's a Swedish drama. It's based on a series of novels. I think there's 8 or 9 novels. And this takes on the first 2 novels, puts them into one movie. They did do a follow-up, which is the next 3 novels, I think. Written, directed by Jan Troll, starring Max von Sydow, very early in his career, Liv Ullmann, Eddie Axberg, Alan Edwall, Monica Zetterlund, Pierre Lindstedt. The 1972 sequel, the next one, is called The New Lands. They were produced at the same time, so they did one, then they went instantly right into the next one, and they're based on the Immigrants, which is that series of novels. It won. So this is a question I have. It won international acclaim. Was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language the year previous, and then this year was nominated for Best Picture. I didn't think that could happen.
I think it can, depending on when was it released in the United States.
Oh.
So if it was
Yep.
released it's Swedish, right?
Yep.
If it was released in Sweden the year prior, then
Right.
it was eligible for an American foreign language, but then they probably didn't distribute it in the US until 1972.
You're so smart.
Thank you very much. I know my Oscars.
All right, so it was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film the year before. This year it was Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress in a Leading Role, and Best Adapted Screenplay. Didn't win a thing.
My fun fact, you can't find it anywhere.
That's
That's a fun fact, it is really
Unless you want
hard
to
to
spend
find
$40
that.
on a DVD,
Yes,
which may or may not work because it's coming from Europe.
and it may or may not be worth it.
Okay, the big one, The Godfather. 1972, American epic gangster film. I'd be surprised if a lot of our viewers have not seen this unless they're a lot younger. Directed by Francis Ford Coppola, who is now a very, very well-known director. He co-wrote the screenplay with Mario Puzo, that's what it's based off, his novel, which was a huge bestseller. I mean, like Dan Brown level bestseller. The film stars Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, James Caan, Richard Castellano, Robert Duvall, Sterling Hayden, John Marley, Richard Conte, and Diane Keaton in a very early role for her. It was nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay, Costume Design, Film Editing, Sound, Dramatic Score. It won Screenplay, Best Picture, and Best Actor for Marlon Brando, who declined the award. That might be one of your fun facts, so if I step on that, I apologize.
Nope.
Interesting note, I'm going to do a quick fun fact. Rhoda's score was nominated for the Academy Award, but then they disqualified it because it was discovered that he had reused some parts of a previous score that he had done for a film called Fortunella, a 1958 Italian comedy, and they said apparently, no, you can't do that, which they must have changed the rules because people do that all the time now.
They do. That's actually a very fun fact because I love the score and I was surprised that it wasn't nominated. So I figured that there was probably some kind of reason. Okay, and I didn't realize that.
Yep.
So I struggle with my fun facts because I don't think there's a lot of things that people don't know about The Godfather.
Correct.
So I'm actually going to give a shout out to a mini series on Paramount Plus,
The
The Offer, which is about what is his name? Albert Ruddy. who is the producer of the Godfather, and I just thought it was fun and interesting and a good thing to watch if people want something a little bit outside source material, very much in his lens. So take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, and there have been 12,000 fact checks of what was actually
Yes.
true, what was not. We'll just say that there were definite moments in it that were 100% true.
Yeah.
Having the issues with the mafia, showing it to them and them falling in love with it and signing off, 100% true.
Yeah.
But
The Robert Evans parts, I think, were very true in his background.
it was more the spirit of it than the actual, we're going to get all the facts correct.
Exactly.
But it was so much fun.
It is a novelization kind of thing. But the only other one that was a fun fact for me was that they asked, Francis Ford Coppola asked that the gun in the tank in the back of the restaurant that Michael is supposed to find be put somewhere other than where Al Pacino was planning to find it.
Oh, so he had this search.
his moment of like reaching around and having a little bit of a panic, that was on purpose.
Ah, okay.
He did not know where it was.
Okay, I'm gonna dive right in. This film is amazing, start to finish. This is probably as close to a perfect film, in my opinion, as you can get. The first 20 minutes of this film tell you everything you need to know about the world that you're in, the people you're going to interact with, and just what is going on. 20 minutes, all set up in the wedding as everybody's just moving around doing their thing. You get everything. They don't have to tell you anything, they show it to you. And I thought that was amazing. I'd forgotten how well the movie sets itself up. I love the first introduction into a movie. You need to set the tone for me. It's a very big thing. You don't just hit the ground running unless it's like, you know, dumb action film, then that's fine. But 20 minutes, you get everything, and it never really deviates or varies from that at all. Thought it was amazing.
I think this is a near perfect movie, and you fully stepped on my first comment. It is the best opening sequence ever, potentially. They show, they do not tell. They show so much with so little, and I believe in America, Darryl. So yeah, I think that was absolutely amazing. I think the ending was amazing, not the end, but when they're in the church and, you know, Michael is denouncing Satan and all of these violent acts are happening, like, you could not have a better bookend of a beautiful beginning to a movie and a beautiful, it was beautiful, even though it was violent and horrible, ending to a movie. And there is not a moment that I'm flipping around the cable channels and this movie comes on that I don't stop. I don't care what part of the movie it is. And we'll talk about there are parts I think are stronger and
sure.
Some that are slightly weaker, but there's not a part that I won't stop and watch the rest of the thing till the end.
Watching it for, I don't know how many times I've seen this, we'll just say it's 7 or 8, I don't know. Anyway, that opening sequence at the thing, I didn't realize how well a single line in that is basically the crux of the entire movie. When Michael is talking to Kate and he's describing when his father went to make him an offer he couldn't refuse, he then turns to her and says, "That's my family, Kate, that's not me." And the entire movie is watching him go from that to being that.
Yes.
And I missed it or just didn't remember it, but I was like, that is so brilliantly just quickly, subtly laid in there. But that is the movie. That is the movie, that line.
I totally agree with you. The other line that I absolutely love that I think shows the flip for Michael is when he's in the hospital and he's just moved his dad to the other room and he's trying to save him because he knows the bad guys are coming, and he says, I'm with you now, Pop. And to me, that's the moment that he's with him.
Yes.
He's with the family. He is now in this world up to his eyeballs in it. And so I loved that. And also to that point, I always questioned, why did he marry Apollonia so quickly? Why did he marry that? You know, he went over, he still got the black eye from being punched probably a week ago. And so why go and woo this girl and marry this girl? And it's because he's accepting that life. He's accepting the life of, you know, I am now in an Italian family. I cannot go back and marry that cosmopolitan modern girl that I've been sleeping with, first of all. Again, very big difference between his girlfriend and his wife. And, you know, I am now part of this world, and I'm going to do what my dad did. I'm going to find a nice Italian girl. I'm going to marry her, have 1,000 kids.
And he also, in doing that, he's also starting to flex his own muscles as far as power and authority.
Yes.
Because her dad initially doesn't want this at all.
Absolutely.
And he basically does what they do and manipulate it to where the father is put in a position where he then has to say yes.
Yes.
So there's also that level and element to it where he's starting to flex his own muscles and see how power and influence can work on other people, but his doing it, not watching somebody else do it.
Exactly.
I know you have a bunch of things. The last thing I'll say, and then I'll answer any of your questions, is this is honestly a masterclass in scene work. What is a scene for? Why is it necessary for moving the plot forward? There are very few moments in this that are throwaway and unnecessary. That's what I've said.
Do you feel the same way? Like the one that I come back to is making the spaghetti sauce.
Yeah.
I think that as well. Is a lot of people have criticized that scene as why is that in there? Why is that necessary?
It's part of being Italian.
It's part of being Italian. It's part of being part of a family. Because this is a family movie. This is not a movie about gangsters. It's about a family who happens to be gangsters, in my mind anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I totally agree that. So hold on, let me take my notes because again, we've talked through a lot of these already. Oh, I wondered your opinion on, I would love to go back to 1972 and see this without knowing what happens. I mean, like, was that a shocking moment when Sonny got killed? Was that a shocking moment when the Don got shot and then that he lived? Like, I would love to know before this is just, I think everybody knows what happens in this movie whether you've seen it or not. So, you know, are these as surprising to people in the first time they're seeing this movie, do you think?
No, and the reason being is gangster films were very popular 30s, 40s, 50s. So, but they'd always become kind of parodies of themselves, but they'd done every gangster movie, every angle of a gangster movie that was possible. So I don't think an audience was surprised by the deaths or the shootings. The way they were done, possibly, but the fact that they were done, not at all. I think they were familiar enough with the gangster life that I don't think they were shocked by any of this.
I have a question for you, and I'll answer it first, which is, who is your favorite character? Mine's Tom. I could talk to you for an hour on Tom.
Sure, I like Tom. I don't know, it's hard for me to pick any of them out because they all work so seamlessly well together. It is a true ensemble cast. Like, everybody is their characters. I can't see any other actors, even modern day, going back trying to put somebody in. Nobody else. Not even like some of the secondary, third, tertiary characters.
Oh, no.
I can't see anybody else but the people that played the role. Maybe that's only because I've seen it so many times and I'm accustomed to it and I'm used to it. But no one takes you out of any performance. Everybody is perfect for their roles.
Nope, agree. Marlon Brando too. I think he absolutely deserved Best Actor, even though there is a question of, is Al Pacino the actual, top actor in the movie? All right, so I think it's fair to say we love this movie.
Absolutely.
For me, it's in my top 3 of my favorite movies. I've seen it probably 30 times, so I absolutely love this movie.
You are a bigger fan than I am.
I am a huge fan of this movie. So let's see, what do we have as criticisms, if any, of this movie? So I will start.
Okay.
I think that I need more in the time that Michael is back for that year. Because we go from a scene where the Don is creating peace amongst the 5 families to the very next time we see him, Michael's in charge of the family, Clemenza and Tessio want to have their own places, and he has lost so much strength and power. He lets Michael fire Tom. Like, what has happened in that year? Did Michael just come back strong from Italy because his wife got killed and he was angry? Or did he slowly, step by step, manipulate to take on that power? No,
you're right, and I will give that as a valid criticism because excuse me, so sorry. It is rather sudden that now suddenly he's the head of the family, and even the family is having trouble with that. There's a scene in the office where, they turn to the Don, and the Don's like, Michael's in charge of the family, states that this is the thing now, and so people around them are kind of struggling with that, but eventually get it. But you're right, it is very sudden that this happens, and there is a time jump, so maybe, I don't know how you would do that wouldn't make it feel weighed down, but I don't know, Francis is pretty damn good. He probably could have figured something out. And I know that there's hours of footage that were shot that never made it into the film, so maybe this just came down to editorial choices to keep the movie flowing so well. Maybe they did film those scenes and they just didn't work and they changed the nature of it. I honestly don't know. But you're right, it is very abrupt.
It's just abrupt for me. How about you? What was things you have had
I
challenges
don't
with?
really have any. Like I said, this is a near perfect movie, and the only reason that I'm not saying it's a perfect movie is because if I think about it long enough, I'll find something.
Mhm.
And I did try to think of a criticism, and I was like, I really can't. I mean, outside of like practical things, that it was 1972, and it has that feel.
Yeah.
Some of the blood, like when Sonny gets killed and the squibs are going off left and right, it does seem kind of fake-ish.
When he kicks Carlos and absolutely does not make contact. Yeah.
So like stupid
Silly
minor little
things,
things
yeah.
like that, and those I think more of just the technology and times of what they were doing, what they had to work with than anything else, and I can't really fault someone for not having better equipment.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, I don't really have any.
All right, sounds good.
All right, so I think it then goes without saying, with the big reveal, did they get this one right?
I'm gonna say absolutely they got it right on Best Picture. I question whether they got Best Director right, because Best Director was given to Bob Fosse.
It was.
And so I would challenge the Best Director should have gone Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I was surprised to learn that he didn't. I think he did for Godfather 2,
Yeah. Yes.
which when we get to that one is going to be an interesting conversation, because Godfather 1, Godfather 2, it's like the Star Wars Empire Strikes Back
Yes,
conversation.
yep.
Which one is a better film?
It's true.
Can't have one without the other, but so anyway, that'll be fun, and that's just in a couple of years.
And you agree?
Oh no, they totally got it wrong. Emigrants should have won.
If only we knew.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right, so order them for me.
Order Emigrants.
No, not order
Oh,
them. I'm
order
sorry.
them
Put
for
them
me.
in order for those 4 movies.
All right, so Godfather for sure, Deliverance, Cabaret, Sounder.
That's what I got.
All right,
There we go. Nicely done.
So so far, 2 for 2. Two we think we got right. 1 we don't. I'll keep a running tally as
Yep.
we go.
And when we disagree.
Yep. Let us know. Please also let us know, anybody, if you've seen the movie, give us some sort of description of, did it deserve to be nominated? Was it? Because we tried for y'all. We really, really did, but we just couldn't get it done. Sorry about that.
And I think we kind of thought we knew where this was going anyway, for whether they got it right or wrong. So maybe we would have tried harder if we thought they got it wrong.
All right. So nothing else for me. Do the liking, subscribing, all that kind of stuff. And so until next time.
Sounds good.
See
Thanks,
ya.
everyone.